Hey there, Dr. Mark here. I'm just about to start working with 2 brand new nutrition clients in my nutrition coaching business. So I figured I would show you the exact steps that I use to get them set up on a plan. The basic 3-step plan that you're gonna learn about today has taken years to simplify and develop. So I'm confident it's gonna help you get started working with nutrition clients right away. Now we have 2 examples to show this process, and both of them are completely different. And about halfway through the video, there's gonna be a completely new free opportunity to work with me. So make sure you hang around for that. But let's start with client number 1. Okay, so here I have client number 1. This is a male client. It's a fat loss client. He is around 5'10". It's a typo there. 5'10", 243 pounds, and he's looking to get leaner. Specifically, he's at 243 right now. I'd love to get back down to 220 sometime this summer. I feel like feeling like garbage with my shirt off, no confidence, and a bit more energy from the gym would be helpful too. Okay, so very obvious what he wants. It's weight loss and that aesthetic component to help build some confidence, that kind of thing. I love asking this question first, and the first thing you should do with the client is get them to fill you in on what they're trying to accomplish, because it's no longer like they're investing in nutrition help. They are looking to you to solve a problem for them, which is always going to be, a stronger thing. It's always going to be one of those things where they take it more seriously. They're more willing to put money and invest in solving a problem than just, education and support, which can be great, but that's not what's going to push them to the next thing. So we ask these questions and kind of go from there. What do you feel your nutrition and health plan is lacking or holding you back from reaching this goal? No real structure. I tried keto and I couldn't keep up with it. On a scale of 1 to 10, how ready are you to change your lifestyle? A 10, which is fantastic. This client's ready to rock. So this is really, really good. If you want this exact application form, which I've designed to get enough information to run some of the next steps we're going to talk about today and get you started working with someone, but not so much that you need absolutely everything to coach them. It's really been designed to minimize the friction in some of these first conversations. We really just want someone to fill this out would be the biggest thing, right? Not be homework, not take them so long, none of those things, right? We want to get that information and go from there. This is the same form I use when someone's, interested in asking a general question. Hey, should I take protein powder? Hey, should I be doing keto? Right? It's one of those things where those are great questions. Before I answer them, why don't I get a better sense of what you're trying to accomplish in the first place? And then I can answer that as well as show you what's holding you back from your goals, and maybe there's something else going on. How does that sound? And go from there. But this first thing is we send over a link to an application form, get them filling things out. The next thing would be considering his goals are so closely tied to a body composition goal, which is, weight loss or muscle gain or some combination of both. We want to take a closer look at the objective components of his nutrition. As a nutrition coach, we're really focused on checks and balances around, how much energy someone's burning, and conversely on the other side of things, how much energy they're taking in and where that energy is coming from. So the calories they're consuming on a total daily basis, as well as where those calories are coming from. Typically the macronutrients, right? The large components of our food, protein, carbohydrates, and fat that supply those calories. Because if we can educate people how to eat within optimal levels of those that fit within their goals and are appropriate for their goals, that's when they're going to get results. So with this client, the first thing I would say back to them is, hey, those are great goals. I completely understand where you're coming from and what you want to accomplish here. Why don't we get you tracking your intake on a food tracking app like Macros First or Chronometer, something like that, for 3 to 5 days, ideally with a weekend day in there, so we get a sense of kind of how your habits change. Don't change a thing. Don't adjust it at all, ideally, because I want to know what your baseline nutrition habits are at on a daily basis and what that looks like. So I can start to make some recommendations and probably point out what's holding you back from your goals. Chances are you're not going to need a huge overhaul here. Like your nutrition is not going to need to change entirely. It's just going to be some small tweaks and adjustments through that process. So this client here did some tracking for me. Ready to see what it's going to look like? On my tracking sheet here, I got all of his information that'll give me kind of what the textbook says he should be, burning for calories, how much energy he's expending on a daily basis based on, some of how his body's made up, his biological sex, his age, his height, his current body weight, how active he is. That's one way of doing it, as a nutrition coach, you're trying to assess how much food should someone be eating. We don't know how much food they should be eating unless we know how much calories they're burning, and those two will match up. And then from there, we determine, hey, if he wants to lose weight, he's going to need to be consuming less than he's burning. So then we set him up on that aspect as well. So we're trying to get a sense of what that is. Using a textbook calculation, this is something called the Harris-Benedict formula. You could also use the Mifflin-St. Jeor. In most nutrition certifications, basic nutrition certifications, they're teaching you how to do this with numbers. We kind of use this as a placeholder for how to compare where someone's at. It's not the end-all be-all of what they're doing because, as I'm going to talk about moving forward, since his goals are so closely tied to body composition, we're going to set him up on a plan that has specific reference to how many calories he should be consuming and what those macros look like on a daily basis. So we need to get this right to get a result, and we're going to create a structure around that. Now, what you'll find in a lot of cases is that this textbook calculation can be pretty far off in a lot of cases. And that's because if we get them tracking moving forward, there's a big difference between how someone theoretically should be eating and what they're currently doing in reporting. They're kind of like apples and oranges, and it doesn't mean what they're doing and how they're going to track is going to be useless because it's not quote unquote right or accurate. It's just that we need to incorporate that into our guidelines and where we set these numbers and come up with a plan. So here's what I saw in terms of the numbers here. Here's just 5 days worth of tracking. We take basically the averages for those 5 days for energy as well as macronutrients. Stay tuned in a second if you want access to this sheet, because I'm going to find a way to get it over to you in a way that you can use, which is going to be fantastic. But we have those average calories and macronutrients as well. On the right-hand side of the sheet, you'll see more of like less of a report of how it compares proportionally to his body weight, because that's how we measure if things are optimal or not, would be based on his body weight in kilograms. So, and even though he captured his weight in pounds, many sports referencing bodies or international nutrition guidelines are going to use these values in grams per kilogram. So we're gonna get comfortable using them in that way and kind of go from there. But what we see here is, for example, his energy intake, his calories per kilogram of body weight. For most people, maintenance level is around 30 to 35. He's coming in at 21 kcals per kilogram, which means he's already in a deficit, which we're also seeing as a kind of a trend with his body weight as he goes through here, which is kind of cool. He started paying attention to what he's eating a little bit more carefully, and here his weight's already coming down. So he's already in a deficit. So we probably don't need to change his energy level all that much, even if there's some underreporting and stuff going on. Where those calories are coming from, though, need to change because his protein intake's on the lower end of things. Right? It's at 1.31 grams per kilogram. Anyone that's looking to improve their body composition is going to be closer to 1.5 to 2.5, sometimes even upwards of 3. So we got to bump his protein up, even if we keep the calories the same, which means we're probably going to be adjusting for the two other macronutrients, carbohydrates and fat, to start setting them up on a plan. So if this was, what I said to this client here is, hey, based on what I'm seeing, your weight's already coming down, which is fantastic. It already means you're in a deficit. So if you were to eat similarly, things would be moving in the right direction, and they already are. What we'll do is let's set you up on a plan here, and you got a tracking tab where you're going to track for the next 12 weeks with the following macro prescription and numbers. We're going to boost your protein up to around 185. I think you can get there most days by just adding in to the serving sizes, the proteins you're already eating. So take a look at that and boost those up, or incorporate a different source of protein, maybe one additional serving each day, coming from something that you're not typically doing. Maybe egg whites, maybe a dairy source, something along those lines. We'll keep the other two somewhat similar, and those fit within those numbers, and the calories the same. And if you eat this way, things are going to move, well in that direction. What we'll do in terms of the check-in process is these are numbers I'm going to be adjusting on a weekly basis, depending how things are looking. I'll do a voiceover like this and I describe this in the video as I'm talking to him. I'll do a voiceover like this, adjusting things. And this is really going to set the structure for your nutrition plan. What we'll do within the coaching process is I'm going to be able to identify through the numbers that I'm seeing as you're tracking and reporting them here, as well as through some subjective information that I'll collect through this check-in form about what's holding you back, what needs to be better, what's already going well, so we can continue to make tweaks to what you're doing through this tracking-based approach, which is really going to be the structure, to fill that structure through the right habits and making sure that you're set up to not only make progress right now, but to make progress long term. So I'll include all this, send it over to them, and I do this with my clients through a process called the free nutrition report, regardless if they've already signed up and they're paid and they're ready to rock, or it's somewhat exploratory and they're getting a sense of, should I do this? And I do that through a free service, which shows them tons of value and gets them bought into the next step. So these are the three things that I'm going to do within this. Is number one, get them to fill out an intake form. Number two, get them doing some tracking on their end so I can set some numbers that aren't just based on what the textbook said they should be doing, which also works in some, get some pre-qualified, that type of thing. And then from there, do an assessment based on what I'm seeing and explain it to them in ways they can understand. And it shows them diagnostically what's holding them back from reaching their goals, which is going to be a great segue into paid coaching. So those are the 3 steps that I'm using to get a nutrition client set up here. Okay, so now before we get to the second client example, check this out. After making literally hundreds of videos for nutrition coaches on this YouTube channel, and training and certifying so many nutrition coaches over the last 5 years, I've come to realize that you guys really benefit and enjoy learning about nutrition coaching systems and getting templates and seeing how things are done. Intake forms, tracking sheets, the check-in process. You like being shown how nutrition coaches actually coach. That's why you're watching this video. And I can imagine you'd like to see these resources. So I want to make it even easier for you to be able to access. Here's how we're going to do it. I have a completely free 3-day quick start nutrition coaching challenge that'll give you everything you need to get started nutrition coaching, including a nutrition coaching system so you can coach clients and keep them organized, with access to the tracking sheet and the application form that you saw in this video. You can get instant access to this challenge in the first link in the description below. Watch the rest of this video and then go to that link and get instant access and get signed up for the challenge right there. Okay, but now back to client example number 2. Okay, client number 2 here. So this client is different, has different goals, but we're gonna use a similar approach, especially around how we get them started. So the first thing being, send them over a form so that we can collect this information here. And then from there, especially that what they want to achieve thing. Most important aspect of this, it gives us all the leverage in the actual back and forth around getting started. It's no longer like, hey, I'm telling you what to do with your nutrition. It's more like, here's what you need to do to reach the goal that you told me you wanted. So this one specifically, a sports performance goal. They want to gain some muscle so they can perform better in running. It's something they've struggled with, can't get over the 120 pound mark. What's holding them back? Inconsistent with food. I get busy at work and sometimes I forget to eat or just don't prioritize it. It makes it tough if you're looking to gain some muscle and you need to eat, more food. 5'5", 118, a bit of a foot injury, but it's manageable. Okay, I got her tracking her food, and I had 5 days worth of data. She seems like just generally a bit more meticulous about things. Had body weight every day. Again, we're taking the averages here around things. I also pumped her numbers into this first client information sheet just to get a sense of what is normal here. Put her at very active because she's training quite a bit more, and log in a bit more volume when it comes to that stuff. In terms of what the textbook, what she's actually doing right now. Again, it's almost like that's the theoretical number. Energy expenditure around 2,200 calories would keep her maintaining her weight, the textbook says. What she's actually doing most days, and again, less swings compared to the last client here. Again, things are just a bit more consistent. Most days around 1,500 calories. So there you go. That's why she's having a hard time. If we think about this versus compared to maintenance levels, we talked about that 30 to 35 being maintaining for most people. She's below that. Almost like 5-ish% below that, which is just gonna make her tough to gain weight. So we're gonna have to add some food in. Where that food should come from, given her goals, her performance-based goals, I would say carbohydrates are on the lower end of things here at 3 grams per kilogram. Her protein's in a good spot. Like that doesn't need to change. And if anything, sometimes that can set her back from eating more. So that would be probably the first thing I would address is like keep protein similar and add in calories from the rest. I don't know if we need to, or add in more calories coming from carbohydrates and fat. Where we go in terms of like, do we go right to 2200? You leave most certifications feeling like, is that like, okay, well, this is what the textbook says where we should go. Let's go right there. But the science of coaching, and I would say the art of it, is like finding that middle ground to get her doing something that'll get her pointing in the right direction, let her habits, catch up. So we're more or less like finding a starting level that's going to get her some results that won't be too overwhelming, and then we'll go from there. So based on this stuff, what I'm seeing, let's create some structure around getting her to eat a little bit more, but from there, keep protein somewhat similar, bump the carbs up to around 235. She's at 160 right now. So that's the biggest jump here. It's more or less like taking a look at, are you prioritizing carbs around training and workouts? And maybe we start working in some intra-workout carbs too as well, just like finding different ways to boost those, making sure that there's an adequate amount at each and every meal. Maybe she's like coming from like a health focused background where she's avoided fruit juices and anything too overly carby, but given her goals and what she wants to do performance wise as well as gaining muscle, it's like now we need to eat more of that. So I'm giving these suggestions as well. This puts her at closer to 235 is closer to like 4 grams per kilogram to start. And again, there's probably room for us to continue to increase that through time, but that's just a good place to start. And then from there, fat is slightly higher just to adjust for eating more food overall. So that would be the structure for things. And I think the lowest hanging fruit, pun intended without a doubt, is finding ways to boost your carbs. And really at the beginning, it's like, hey, we're gonna keep tracking your food towards these targets. Nothing's gonna be completely different, but we gotta find a way to ramp your carbs up. Let's review what's going on around your workouts. Let's review what's going on around your general meals to make that a priority, because chances are there's something it's getting missed meal to meal, and there just needs to be a bigger priority on it. And she does that, things will be moving in the right direction. So this is a muscle gain client. Probably talk briefly about what she's doing for training as well. I mean, running and, it's weight bearing exercise for sure, but there's probably room to make sure that she's doing some resistance training to really optimize the entire muscle gain process and make her stronger, more resilient, and make sure her nutrition reflects that as well. And as a nutrition coach, I feel confident just having that conversation and chatting about what it would look like and making sure that she's doing those things while giving her the direction with her nutrition. So this is the second client here. Again, I'm going through that 3-step process, collect information, get her doing the things so I can take a look at what she's actually doing right now, and then make an assessment, send this over to her, tell her what I'm seeing, and then from there, talk to her about coaching and get her signed up as a nutrition client. So that's what I did with this client here. I'm excited to see how it goes. And that's it, folks. That's the 3-step process that you need to put into action to get started working with nutrition clients. Collect some information through an intake form, deliver some value and get them bought into the process by getting them to do something, getting them tracking, and then show them the power of coaching through a free assessment that shows them exactly what's holding them back from reaching their goals. And since you have the path to results, it's going to be easy to get them signed up as a paying nutrition client. Remember, if you want all the templates and scripts to pull this off yourself, you can sign up for the completely free 3-day challenge at the link in the description below. So go check that out right now. And as great as all those tips are, if you're really serious about starting a nutrition coaching business, the next thing I'm gonna have you do is check out this video I've linked up right here. Today we talked all about how to get a nutrition client started, but next up I wanna show you how to optimize your check-in process and save you a bunch of time using my hybrid check-in strategy. So check it out right here, and I'll see you in the next video.